Well, good morning, my YouTube fans. I have a story to tell you. What you're looking at here is a mess of a wiring harness on an 8.1 Vortec. This actually came out of it's a W22 Workhorse chassis. It's a Winnebago 35A 2005 model. And this is a friend of mine. His name's John. We've talked over the years about RV issues and problems. And I've had this happen to two different people. And so I need to bring this to everybody else's attention because we need to inspect our wiring harness so it doesn't happen to you. So twice I've had this happen where people are just driving down the road and suddenly the engine just stops running, shuts down. And it shuts down due to the fact the wiring harness gets into the air conditioning pulley and cuts into the harness. Now, this fellow's name is John. Now, his scenario was this. He was on a trip, driving along. He hit a bump. The moment he hit the bump, the engine just shut off. He coasted to the side. He had a crank, no start situation. So it just crank, 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 no start. He didn't know if he lost a fuel pump, if he lost spark, what happened. So he gives me a call, and I'm helping him troubleshoot it. Of course, first of all, I'm trying to think, okay, what could cause a no spark situation? I think it's the first thing we did. He may got like a screwdriver or something like that stuck in a spark plug wire and determined, hey, we got no spark. So then I went and looked on our RV on the firewall. There are two fuses on the front firewall. In a minute we'll go outside. I'll show you where they are. And because I thought if those fuses blow, that will kill both spark and fuel injection. So I had him check those fuses. His fuses were good. So that by that time we didn't know really what else we could do on the side of the road. He lost spark and fuel injection. So he'd already called AAA. I think he said he waited 3 hours, got towed. The next day, or that evening, he got to a repair shop. The repair shop then proceeded, they were scratching their head, so they proceeded, I believe they put in a new camshaft position sensor. They put in a new crankshaft position sensor, which would kind of be logical, I guess, if you lost spark. They still had no spark, so they were scratching their heads. And I think it just so happened John got to looking himself and got at the right angle, and he noticed the wiring harness had bumped into because it wasn't a mess like this, it was still all together. This is later after they cut away the plastic to expose the wire that was damaged. So he noticed there was a nick in the wiring harness where it got against the pulley. So that is what had happened to him. So actually he's the one that discovered it. I don't think the technician of the repair shop, they didn't find it. He did himself. But then they dug into the harness. They found the cut wires, one or two of them that got damaged. They made the repair, and I'll show you some other pictures here where he got it fixed up. Okay, so that was kind of after they fixed the damaged wires just to get it back on the road, because you can see the harness is still close to the pulley. But that was just a temporary fix. You can see they put some rubber and stuff in there to keep it from happening, just enough for him to get home. You can see here he had it zip tied up. Now this is a warning for you. We talked about this. Not to run zip ties over your aluminum lines on your air conditioning lines. Enough vibration, you could wear a hole right through those lines. And that gets expensive replacing those air conditioning lines. So be mindful of that. But anyway, that was just a temporary fix because it got this wiring harness up away from that air conditioning pulley. There's another close-up shot. And okay, this was his final repair after he got home and had time to work on it himself. See these really nice clamps he put in instead of having just plastic zip ties? Here's a better picture of what he used. These they're stainless steel clamps with rubber cushion on them, and really makes for a nice job to keep that wiring harness in place. Now something I need you, maybe we can do a little survey with other people out there. I noticed in our RV, the wiring harness runs up and over and goes straight over the radiator support and on around the brake mechanism. I'll show you here in a minute. But his comes around down to the sides. But we got to discussing it. We were wondering if maybe all of them left the factory going straight over the top. There is a zip tie up here, way up in this area here. I'll show you. It breaks, and when it breaks, I think it allows the wiring harness to fall down into the pulley. But I want my subscribers out there, you guys got the 8.1, take a peek and let me know if any, I don't know if any of these from the factory are routed this direction, or maybe when they all leave the factory, they route straight up and over. It's just the fact that zip tie is breaking and the harness is falling into the pulley. I don't know for sure what the facts are, but I'll take you outside and I'll show you better what I'm talking about. And then here you can see what he did. He got one of these clamps, this clamper right here, and you can see he's got a little bolt where he bolted in place. So it is absolutely not going to move anymore. But we believe, and there's a close-up shot of the nut that this is holding it in place. Oh, there's another good close-up shot. So gives you an idea of his repair. He did a really good job. Got that in good shape. So so I believe he told me it's like $500 with the repair shop, the tow bill, and all that stuff. He may have had insurance or something anyway. So you need to check your wiring harness so this doesn't happen to you. So let's go outside in the garage and look at ours and see if we can't prevent this from happening to me also. Okay, we're down in the garage now. And you can see how our wire harness is routed. You know, straight across the top of the engine. You see these big plastic zip ties that they've bit in from the factory. Of course, these are still holding. One up here, and it runs right over top of in between the two air conditioner lines. So I got to looking at ours, I'm thinking, well, because of this wire here coming up, there's really no way mine could fall down into the pulley, I don't think, because of this wire here. It comes up, it goes into the bottom of the harness, kind of locks it in place. So you don't know. I'll do a little more tugging and pulling, see if I can force it down. Well, my harness seems pretty good shape, but I guess with enough time, because of the weight of the harness, maybe it could sag down and get down into that pulley. But I was going to point out to you, you can see where mine is also broken. Let me see, I got to zoom in. There we go. That zip tie back there, that was holding the wiring harness in place, and it is broken. Let me take you out front and I'll show you another one that's broke. But I'm just kind of curious how many, let's get focused here. I wonder how many are routed right across the top, or some of them leave the factory where they route them along the side. If they route them along the side, you can see how close it gets to this pulley. That's our danger zone. We want to stay away from this. So I know of two people that's happened to, left them stranded on the side of the road. Let me take you up front. I'll show you another place where the zip tie breaks. All right, try to get you oriented where we are. There's a fuse box, a brake mechanism. You drop down into here. You see the wiring harness. I gotta get in positions so I can show you. Okay, and you see, let me see my finger on this part right here. See, the zip tie is gone. There's supposed to be a zip tie to go through that. I've already loosened it up. So there's supposed to be a zip tie through there to hold that wiring harness good and tight so it doesn't move. So two of my zip ties have already broken, and yours maybe also. So my harness has dropped down and laying on top of the brake lines. So I need to come back in here, put me a zip line or something better, one of those good clamps. I think they're called a Dell clamps. That clamp I showed you a picture of. I found one. I had pieces of it here somewhere. I don't know where the other part of it is. But I took the rubber piece off an Dell clamp and thought about using something like this. I was just looking at my junk drawer. That's what I had. So I could support this harness a little bit better to get it off those brake lines. So that's something you need to inspect yours. So now I want to show you a little bit of troubleshooting that we did to figure out his situation, the fact that he lost spark. So let's go back inside. Okay, back in the RV. So going back to my story, remember he called me he was on the side of the road. He had a crank no start condition. So I'm going to simulate a crank no start condition. Now how I've done this, I went out on the firewall and pulled the two fuses that control both spark and fuel injection. So he had the same scenario. He would go to start. That was his sound. Crank, 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 no start, not even trying to start. So in that situation, we got to think, okay, what does the engine need to run? Well, we need fuel, we need spark. So we lost one of the two. Now, for me, because I've got a fuel gauge sending unit, and then I've got a gauge mounted on my dash, it makes it kind of easy. I know what my fuel pressure is at all times. So let's go, if I go crank, let's see what we get. So it's sitting at 50 right now. Oh, okay, while it's in crank mode, it kills the gauge. I didn't realize that. But anyway, you can see I'm sitting at 50 PSI, key on. So I know I got fuel pressure. Now in talking to him, he didn't have a gauge with him. You know, he didn't have one mounted on the dash, and he did not have a manual gauge that I also carry with me, because that's something I would suggest. You know, if you don't have a gauge on the dash like this, at least carry you a manual gauge. It's simple enough. All you got to do is unscrew the Schrader valve here. Normally there's a little plastic cap, and you screw this on there. You crank the engine over, you should see pressure. If you don't see pressure, you know you've lost a fuel pump, fuel relay, a fuse to the fuel pump. Something gives you a fighting chance of where to start looking. So if you got fuel pressure, then that only leaves spark. So then, okay, how are we going to test for spark? So, okay, while editing this video, I left something out. So I'll point this out to you. While he was on the side of the road, remember he didn't have a gauge. He didn't have a way to confirm fuel pressure. So what he did, he carefully unscrewed the Schrader valve and depressed the Schrader valve itself, and fuel sprayed out. So at least he knew he had some pressure. He didn't know how much, but at least he did know he had some pressure at the fuel rail. If he had zero pressure, then he wouldn't have known it was a fuel pump issue. But I just wanted to point that out. That's how he got around that option to figure out he at least had some fuel pressure. But I would recommend carry you a gauge with you. All right, I wanted to point that out. Now back to the show. What I like to do is carry with me an old spark plug wire and a spark plug. So it's easy enough. You just come down here and unplug that. Plug up this old wire. I like doing it this way instead of trying to pull off the, a little dark in there, isn't it? There we go. All right. So we can lay this up here. We kind of lay it here where we get some ground. Now I'm going to show you, because I purposely, now I'm going to crank, we should see spark. But you notice we don't, because I've purposely pulled the fuses off of it. So now I'm going to go back and put the fuses back in. You know what fuses to pull. You look in here, you see it says in your fuse box panel here on the firewall, you got engine left hand 15 amp, engine right hand 15 amp. These fuses control both the spark and fuel injection. So let's put those fuses back in. And then we'll have, and I dropped my fuse, of course I did. All right. And we put the other fuse in there, then we'll go back in there and we should have spark. All right, back in the RV, now when I crank, you should see we have spark, because the engine should fire up and run. So that's really handy having a spare spark plug, an old spare spark plug and spark plug wire, so you can quickly test to see that you got spark going to the engine. Now another tool I keep with me is this right here. It's a spark tester. It's an inline spark tester. So with it, you would unplug your existing spark plug wire off your engine, plug this tester up into your spark plug that's already inside the engine, then take your plug wire and stick it on here like this. Then start or crank the engine, and you'll see light flashing here, knowing you got spark or not. I kind of like the spark plug wire thing easier. It's a lot quicker. One thing you got to be leery about, especially if you have an old set of plug wires, when you go to pull these boots off, sometimes you can pull that metal end right off. And if you haven't changed your plug wires yet, you could be in a Workhorse chassis, I would highly suggest getting yourself the wires from Brazel's RV. These are about 150 bucks. It'll be the last set of wires you ever need. I got a video where I did a review on them. I cut them away and show you how well made they are. But it's solid core stainless steel wire. There's zero resistance. It's got the little magnet on here. Keeps the radio frequency, keeps the static out of your radio. But awesome set of wires. You put them on there and you'll never have any more worries. But if you got original factory wires, I'm sure you're way past due for a new set. Oh, there's one more thing too. Is an annoyed light. These things, these are really great to confirm your fuel injection is working. So let me show you how that does. Get a few things out of my way. So, and I'll put a link to this stuff below the video. So you take, here's a little annoyed light. You just have to get down here and unplug first of all, you got to get that little green clip off the fuel injector. And then you have to try to get there and see it. Yeah. And you got this little lever you got to push. And you can pull this connector off of the fuel injector and then push the Noid light into it. It can be a little tight fit, but it works. All right, now then if you want to confirm you got fuel injection, at least you want to make sure you're getting pulse to the fuel injectors. You just crank it and watch that light, because it should start up here for us. So that way we can confirm we got fuel injection pulse and we got spark. So if you had that crazy situation, if you had fuel pressure, you had spark, and you had fuel injection pulse, and it still didn't run, that'd be a pretty crazy scenario. I don't know what we'd have to deal with. I don't think you could. I never heard of these things jumping time, but you know, unless there's a crankshaft position, unless it's throwing the timing wrong or something, that would be a pretty bizarre failure. But anyway, with a couple of those tools will really help you out for your troubleshooting. Anyhow, I guess that's all I got to say about that. But go outside, check out your RV, check your wiring harness, see how it's laying. I'm just curious of how many are on top like this versus how many are coming down to the side. If they all left the factory this way, maybe some of them over time the straps break and the wire harness creeps down over to the side. I really don't know, but enough of you chime in, we can kind of get an idea of what's normal, what's not normal. But once again, thank you all for watching. Have a blessed day, and we'll see you later.